Hello, today is March 26th, and it's the day after Sauron fell. And we're here with another episode of the news. It's also Aragorn's birthday was yesterday.
A lot of people had comments when we talked about why Middle-earth had the same calendar as us.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe that that's kind of like Thundar, where it's either way in the past or way in the future of the real Earth.
It is a slightly different calendar, but it's similar. But it's neither here nor there. The Shire calendar is completely different from everybody else's, too.
I like the creativity of the calendar that was in RimWorld. That was pretty cool. April, May.
Oh, it was more like, just so you know the season.
December.
Yeah.
Well, I always love, if at all possible, always start the news, start the week off right, talk about a Jeep pie. And this week, some rare good news.
The FCC is going to cough up $43,000 in a settlement for refusing to turn over fake comment records.
What will they do without that $43,000?
Well, that was our $43,000.
Yeah,
the taxpayers.
It doesn't hurt them. This is a little bit misleading. It's a settlement, kinda, but what they're really just doing is paying the court costs of the guy who sued them because they never actually gave him the Freedom of Information records. They never gave it to them. Even after this, he got it from some other regulatory agency who had it. So they do not admit fault. They do not admit guilt. They just pay his legal fees and it goes away.
That's a lot of legal fees to get some records about them. I mean, does anybody, clearly no one is paying attention. I mean, this seems to be like the smoking gun.
They're being paid to not pay attention.
That has DNA all over it. And it's like, look, there is criminal wrongdoing here. The FCC is culpable. One of the comments in this article was, we don't have the technical ability to see who submitted what, which is a lie. Their API system, you have to have a key. You could at least tie it to a key. Now, whether the key was leaked by a third party or something like that, okay, maybe. But the system is literally built to associate a transaction with a key.
But you say that nobody's paying attention. These are the people who are supposed to be paying attention.
They're trying, yeah.
No, the FCC is the watcher.
Well, who's watching the watchers?
They're just random citizens.
It's just us. We're literally
they can't get the records. That guy, when he did get the information, his interpretation of it is that he expected at least 50% of those comments to be fake.
The amazing thing here is you watch old 80s sitcoms or, the A-Team, and it's like, wow, the level of corruption in this, southeastern Texas town is just off the charts. They got nothing on the FCC.
Well, so who watches the watchers, right? Maybe some good news. And I always love to see sort of a predator going after a parasite. That's always nice, right? So it's
it's laser precision.
It's the circle of life. Sometimes good things happen.
Microsoft says that the FCC overstates broadband availability in the U.S. They would know. They've got the data from Windows Update. So the FCC is like, look at all these places you can get 25 meg. Microsoft says, not so fast. You guys are saying if one person in a zip code can get 25 meg, everybody can get to 25 meg. We have the data. We know that's not true from Windows Update.
And people have been saying that for years. Yes. Not even under Wheeler, they were saying that.
Yeah.
Probably before then. And but Microsoft is a big enough name. Maybe somebody will pay attention. No. I mean, Vice paid attention. They wrote an article about it.
Also, the subtitle or the sub-article here was America's broadband infrastructure is really bad. A lot of countries are surpassing us. A lot of countries, even like Canada, which has a lower population density than the U.S., is maybe getting to where they have better. And it was we don't have a plan for fiber everywhere. I mean, this is a disaster.
But up until this point, Microsoft kind of didn't have a dog in that fight. But now that everything's going onto the cloud, subscription, software as a service, now all of a sudden, bad internet access reflects on them.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good thing. Once again, if we can get the predators on our side against the parasites, enemy of our enemy.
Get decent internet and a nice plot of land.
That's impossible.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Microsoft's not going to fight for you there.
Please.
If only we had some sort of comprehensive national plan for deploying fiber optics everywhere. And, the best time to plant that plan was 30 years ago. It's like a tree. It's the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The best time to have a... Never mind.
How about we just take the shackles off of businesses so they can do it?
Yeah. Yeah, at this point.
Because the government ain't going to do nothing right.
No.
Scooters in LA. Now, we talked about these. These are the little electric scooters, and they're breaking everybody's kneecaps, and clogging up the place and nobody will park them. So what do you do if you're a city planner? What's the answer?
You monitor everything. The majority of scooters in LA are going to share your location with the city. And the LA Department of Transportation is like, we should probably do this with everything. Cars and people, and just literally everything.
Here they are. Look at them loitering.
They're
Shooting
probably
dice
like,
on the
those
corner.
two guys, look how scared they look.
So the idea is these things are being parked illegally. They're being abandoned. They're being used on sidewalks, which is not actually legal. You're supposed to use them in the street. That's true of bicycles as well. Oh my
That
God,
shouldn't
that
be
is so
true.
annoying. And so they're saying we're going to track these from when they start to where they end to make sure that people are following these rules. We would never sell that location data afterwards to track your commute and sell that to third parties or see which stores you go by every day so we can advertise to you. Never.
I wonder if there's since the law says we have to collect the data, we might as well go ahead and sell it. Or if it's more like...
The law doesn't exist yet, though.
Yeah.
So that argument is kind of hollow. They're saying, we need a law. And while we're at it, we could sell the data.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. California, another thing that they're doing is they're fighting for the right to repair. But it doesn't seem like they put a lot of effort into this one.
California reintroduces the right to repair bill after the previous effort failed. It's basically unchanged, and they're talking about Apple here. It's all about Apple, really, because it's like, look, we could repair devices, and Apple's like, no, you don't. We built this robot for repairing stuff, so you don't need to worry about that.
I think it's not basically the same. I think it is literally the same. They went in and changed the dates.
It's like when you're a designer and like a client asks, like, I just don't like this particular shade of green, and I'm not going to approve anything until that shade of green is changed, and then you like just send it back the same, and you're like, oh, it's way better.
Maybe. I don't know. It's a good thing, though. We probably should have it. And I've not read that bill to see if there's anything crazy in it because, California, they get a little crazy sometimes. But we should definitely be able to fix our devices. However, I did see one of the lines from one of the politicians who was talking about this. And they were like, we need to fight for this so that parts and literature and everything is available to properly registered and regulated repair centers. So it's like, not you idiots at home. The people we control need to get this. So the evil corporations are wrong. People at home are too stupid to do this. But if you apply for a license and pay me a fee, then we'll talk about it. And that's the problem with laws like that.
It's another source of tax revenue. ...
What, in your mind, is the most important thing that we need in space?
Weapons.
What kind of weapons?
I was going to say Dippin' Dots, but
Well, Dippin' Dots would stay Dippin' Dots forever in space.
they're
That would
the
be
ice cream of the future.
super convenient. However, getting them into your mouth through your spacesuit,
You just
problematic.
smear it on the helmet.
You're going to have a little airlock thing, and it's just...
Well, how about some particle beams? Some lasers. That's what I want.
The Pentagon wants to test a space-based weapon in 2023. So, yeah, they're trying to get permits for this. The trick with this, though, is that you think about it as like an Air Force. Once you get particle weapons going, an Air Force is suddenly useless. Because, like, the whole missile evasion thing and all this kind of stuff.
Everyone made fun of Trump for having the Space Force, but now here
Well,
we are.
I'm not sure if this can penetrate the atmosphere. This is for those hypersonic missiles that actually go above the atmosphere for the, ICBMs and stuff. So the idea is you've got maybe 20, 30 seconds of time where you can laser those and take them out of commission before they head down towards your country. So there's actually a treaty against space weapons, but it's only weapons of mass destruction. So lasers
Minor
and particle
destruction,
beams,
totally
they're
fine.
okay. And I think it probably wouldn't be feasible to shoot the ground with one of these things, but I have no basis for saying that. I just assume there would be too much interference in the
Atmospheric heating.
Yeah.
All your energy will be lost to the atmosphere.
And if they were to fire a nuke on a cloudy day, it would have to go above the clouds for you to have any hope of using this against them.
Yeah, that's so true.
So the detractors say this is just a pointless step in the arms race because they'll just start designing low-flying nukes to fight this, and we'll never get to use it.
Oh,
But
yeah,
it would be
that's probably
hundreds of
true.
millions of dollars.
It seems like the only real way to deal with that would be to have tons of satellites with little micro drones, and the micro drones would just go attached to the thing and then blow up or something to blow up the payload.
But they're hypersonic, so I don't think your drones would ever be fast enough.
Well, if it pops out of the atmosphere and you've got like a grid of satellites in orbit, then maybe, because it's going to intercept faster.
But the other thing about those hypersonic missiles is they move erratically.
That would be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the design of those things is pretty incredible. That's why they're so scary. If you read about those things.
Oh, we're going to say the wrong thing to Putin, and then it's going to be bad.
Yeah, well, or Trump.
Yeah, really. I mean,
Let's not excuse ourselves here.
Or that guy in North Korea. Why are all the world leaders unstable?
It turns out there's a certain kind of person who's attracted to power,
And also will do anything to get the money to get to the power.
and it's almost always the worst person to be a leader. It's weird how that works. But it is important that we get space lasers purely because we will be the first to do it. And USA is and must remain number one. that
USA,
is-
not China number one. USA
That's
number
exactly, not China. And that's why this story is so important.
Racing against China, the U.S. reveals details of a $500 million supercomputer. The question in my mind was, whose processors? Turns out Intel.
This is the Cray processors. And this thing, should it do what they claim it will do, will just shoot all the competitors out of the water.
Yeah.
It is way more powerful than anything we've seen before.
I think the number one or number two is currently at Oak Ridge in Tennessee, the Oak Ridge National
Yeah.
Labs. But yeah, this thing is going to just be insane. It's also, I think, going to use Nvidia's GPUs, so it's Intel CPUs plus, but it's all sort of fancy new technology. So we'll see.
Oh, the AMD subreddit ain't gonna like that. China had it, I think, in like 6 years ago.
Yeah,
We took it back with IBM, and now I got this thing. But here's the catch. Here's where we got to catch up. China has more supercomputers in the top 100 list.
no.
Yeah. So get on it, supercomputer makers in the U.S.
manufacturers.
Don't make us look bad. We have talked about the Stingrays, Celebrite, and then they got, what was the name of the Gray Key? Was the one
the
that
Gray
they
Key,
had.
yeah.
They got all these different ways to hack your cell phone. And now they've got another one, which,
Well, those are only for terrorists, right?
oh, right, yeah, well, well, but people who crash their cars are also terrorists.
Oh,
Presumably.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so Nevada is considering technology to scan cell phones after crashes. It's like, oh, you've been in a car wreck? Let me see your phone where I can just download it. Now, this technology, they say, oh, this is just to see if you were using your phone. But they have to be pretty invasive to comprehensively determine that.
So, yeah, that's pretty bad. And you wonder, apparently it doesn't look for certain things. If you're playing Pixel Dungeon, it doesn't know. It can only detect swipes from the OS and keyboard usage right now. So there's a lot of things people could do that would be distracting. But the other thing is, do we believe even of the slightest shred that that's the only thing that Celebrite's going to be pulling out of that phone when they scan it?
No. It's going to, like, literally when those things go up for auction on eBay, it's going to be like, wow, there's like 50 people's phones on here. But that's already happened.
You do. I mean, it is a huge problem because I see people all the time looking at their phones.
Yeah.
And I can say from experience, just shaming them and telling them what a terrible person they are does not stop it.
Wendell plays with our lives every day.
And if you hate people texting while driving, then maybe you're going to say to yourself, we need to just automate. It's got to be mass transit. Let's make it fast. Let's make it efficient. Let's make it wonderful. But the Virginia Transit Authority has some bad news for you.
Virginia transit officials drove through Elon Musk's tunnel. They say that they're going to stick with those railways and roads for right now. I like how all the quotes from them were like the journalists were like, hey, say something bad about Musk. And they were like, we're just going to watch this technology for a while.
They were nice about it.
Yeah.
They
I wonder
were,
what part of Virginia they were from.
That's like the D.C. area because it's
okay.
supposed to go from D.C. to some Virginia city.
I was gonna say, how hilarious would it be if it was like someone who grew up in like a coal mining area of Virginia, and like they grew up probably in super dangerous conditions in some of those roads and tunnels, but they're like, let's not go on Elon Musk's. Like, what does that say?
So he invited them to the one that's out at his SpaceX area where they're testing it. And it is just a Model 3. with guide bumpers on it. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
And it's very bumpy. They compared it to a dirt road. So they're not inviting Musk to build a tunnel.
I wonder if that's really like, I mean, how unfixable of a problem is that? Is that a cosmetic problem? Is that like the equivalent of like delivering a thing where it's like, yeah, the SSL certificate is not signed because this is only a test site, and they're just fixated on that?
Well, he claims that he didn't have time to smooth it, but why would you invite him without smoothing it?
I mean, but maybe he didn't think that they would lack the imagination to. It's like anybody can smooth it. Like any idiot with a trowel and some concrete can smooth it. Or maybe it's a systemic problem.
But he's also not showing them the car technology. Like, he's literally just driving a regular passenger car.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't do that.
You really need to work these things out before you invite the people who are going to buy it. But we'll see. You know, he might still have a plan. Google. We talked last week about Google and the EU and how much the EU loves to fine them. And there were some really big numbers on the table. I don't think they maxed it out, but the fine did come down.
Google fined nearly $1.7 billion for ad practices that violated the European antitrust laws. This is what we were talking about last week when it was like, it seemed like this is from something that happened in 2016. Google has since changed their thing to comply with this, but they're still reviewing the situation, I guess, from 2016, and they finally decided, even though you changed, you still owe this.
They said, we applaud Google for improving this. They have made it better. They still owe us $1.7 billion.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Give us your money.
So, yeah, that's the search. If you put the Google search on your site to search your site, it would serve ads. But you were not allowed to run any other ad platform if that was the case.
I kind of feel like that there's okay. I mean, yeah, probably Google maximizing revenue and, they're going to use one product to help another product. Okay. But I also, at the same time, it's like if the European Union is like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And then Google in a relatively expedient manner is like, okay, cool, we'll not do that. This feels a little punitive.
Do you think it was that cut and dry, though? Were they warned?
Well, I'm just looking at like how Facebook stuff is unfolding on the world stage, and Google seems to be much less hideously evil than, say, Facebook with these kinds of things.
I think they might have a better face on it. But the EU, we sort of, in these situations, we look at the EU as if it's sort of a champion of the people. It's a parasitic government looking for money. And it found a big, juicy dog to latch onto. It's a big tick. That's
man of the people.
Yeah, so, of course, they're going to take as much money as they can. And they know that Google can afford it.
That's kind of,
What are you up to over there?
I started to grab it, and then I remembered what we did with Wendell the other day, because it makes a lot of noise.
It's fine.
But the EU, you could say perhaps they're a little hypocritical when it comes to these tracking, because you think, well, okay, are they going to pay $1.7 billion?
No. Because the Financial Times has this amazing article. EU citizens are being tracked on sensitive government websites. EU citizens are being tracked on various sites. They're allowing more than 100 advertising companies, including Google and Facebook, to surreptitiously track citizens across sensitive public sector websites, apparently in violation of the EU data protection rules. What they're talking about is cookies and analytics tracking scripts. So these are still in play on a lot of these websites that the European Union, the government themselves use, and they are not GDPR compliant because they have not been updated.
Yeah.
Are they going to go after that money, you think?
Well, who are they going to fine? Themselves?
Exactly. Well, they have to.
You're going to pay that fine and then take the money?
See, again, I think it's like, once they point it out, it's like it's like, oh yeah, our bad. We forgot about that website that we set up 12 years ago that no one uses. Whoops.
Yeah. A little hypocritical, you could certainly say that.
Yeah.
But how long... Now, here's the other thing. The gears of bureaucracy move very slowly. How long will it take you... do you think it'll take them to get rid of that?
2027.
Probably about that. We talked about the FCC and their debacle with the online petition to, speak about net neutrality. How do you feel about it? And we kind of take online petitions with a grain of salt because of this reason. But this week, one is really in the news.
More than 3 million people have now signed a petition for the UK government to cancel Brexit. I think it was rapidly approaching 4.
It's past 5.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Now, here's the
I know
question.
the website was offline a couple of times.
Yes, it did take down the website for quite a while. And even since then, intermittently, it's been on and off.
We need to get those guys on the whole PewDiePie versus T-Series.
It's much more important.
People will care as much about that as they will about Brexit.
But here's the question. How much do you think is going into manipulating this number one way or the other?
Oh, probably a lot.
Do you think the website going down could have been somebody just opening up the fire hose for votes, and then it could be somebody DDoSing it to try to keep the vote number at a minimum?
Yeah.
You never know with online petitions. That's the funny thing about this.
Tell us how you feel in the comments. That's your engagement challenge. What's going on?
There'll be a lot of engagement for that.
You know, if UK leaves the EU, then Sweden is going to be the last country alphabetically instead of the UK.
That's really what's at stake here.
So when it comes time to give their presentations, they'll go last.
Sweden, yeah. Sorry.
Very
That's
important.
brutal for Sweden.
Or they might
really
like that. You did learn, as a kid, you thought, I want to go last because this is horrible. But then eventually you figured out, I want to go first. Because,
Everybody will forget how horrible you were.
well, the teacher will grade
This guy does
easier
presentations.
once it's, because the teacher's getting beaten down with these terrible presentations and probably just getting angry. So you want to get up there first. Plus, the stress time is, you get a lot less overall cortisol if you just get up there and do it.
I see it. That's rational, and I would think that way. But then when I actually had to give a presentation, I was like, "Oh, please don't pick me," even though I knew I had to do it.
This is the girl who ran away from the cheese counter.
Yeah, I have some anxiety issues, as it turns out.
Don't be like Krista. Go first. You'll thank me for it. Over in the EU, another thing that they hate are pirates, especially sports pirates.
The TV piracy ring walks the plank. Eurocops launched 14 raids and shuttered 11 data centers. So illegal streaming gangs served up sports from 800 countries. Apparently, a lot of their infrastructure was in, it was the Dutch?
Netherlands.
The Netherlands.
That's Dutch.
But it wasn't everywhere. But they had to raid a bunch of different sites simultaneously because this gang had gotten so good about moving their infrastructure. They actually flew under the radar for a long time. And they figured that it was like 8 million euro or 8 million pounds? It was 8 million pounds. It was something crazy.
I thought it was a crazy low number. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
8 million euros.
8 million euro. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot because you have to subscribe. Like, as a consumer, it would seem like this is a legit service because you subscribe to it. But these guys were actually just, collecting and restreaming, and it was scattered across the internet. And their infrastructure was so distributed that it was really hard to track and take down efficiently.
But I wonder, we talk about people being stupid, but on some level, if you're a consumer of sports, then you probably know, you see the advertisements while you're watching the sports, right? Hey, get this package and it costs this price, and here's what you get. But then you hear about these guys who are giving you every sporting event in the world for low prices. Don't you have to know?
You would probably know, yeah.
I think people know. The Germans have come forward and they're ready to make a stand. What are they making a stand against, you wonder? Well, the most important thing.
They want a treaty to ban killer robots. They're the global champions. That's a champion. To ban killer robots.
Yeah, I got news for you, Krauts. You don't put that genie back in the bottle. That's like gunpowder. It's here to stay. So as soon as Putin builds one, or Kim Jong, or whoever builds one, yeah, you're going to have to. You can't just say ban it and it's okay.
Yeah.
And killer robots are terrifying. I'm not saying they're not, but let's be realistic here. Didn't have the next story ready in time.
You didn't know. I was waiting.
I'm fired up about killer robots.
Well, I mean, you could argue that we already have killer robots because the drones are almost point and click. Yeah. Well, they are point and click, but they're almost automated at this point.
Well, you remember the tank drone with the minigun mounted to it? The aiming is autonomous, but they claim it requires someone to press the button.
But, I mean, how often have you misclicked? I mean, I've been playing a game of Minesweeper, and it's like, I totally know that I'm not clicking
it's aimbotting.
that.
Surely it would count.
You don't have to tell us that. We've played PUBG with you.
Yeah. Although Wendell's problem with PUBG is just the constant looting.
Yeah.
Well, no, he would
I can't
murder us. He would murder us quite a lot. When we ran out
I
of him.
murdered him once or twice too. I think.
Yeah, well, we're all guilty of it.
Yeah, we're all team killers.
So, I
I saw movement. I shot movement.
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
What more you want?
So you have to think that it would happen. Now, we've talked about Google in China, and after Dragonfly, Google has really been careful to try and walk that tightrope. They want to keep the Chinese government happy, but there's a lot of pressure on them. And this latest move is not going to win any awards here at home.
The Google ban has included VPN ads in China, and Google cites local regulations, local legal restrictions as the cause for the Chinese VPN ads ban. So in China, they like to monitor what you're doing on the internet. VPNs make that harder. So VPNs are banned in China. So advertising a VPN in China is a thing you shouldn't do. But like Dragonfly, it's like, maybe we shouldn't build this apparatus, to cater to this. I feel like if you're a Google employee and you had a problem with Dragonfly, you probably should have a problem with this as well.
Well, they just move you off the project and say, "Oh, we're not doing that anymore," when they're totally doing it.
Well, there's no project here. They just turn it off.
Yeah.
Here's the question, though. Did Google do this because of local laws, or did somebody in the Chinese government tap them on the shoulder and say, listen?
Somebody in the Chinese government tapped them on the shoulder.
Now, here's the hypocrisy. When we talk about government hypocrisy, nowhere in the world are more VPN apps programmed and sold than in China. They just sell them to us. And guess what? If you're using a Chinese VPN, they're spying.
I feel like that anybody that has watched this program for any amount of time would probably know that, but maybe not. Maybe you should tell your friends.
Yeah. Same is true of Facebook, it turns out. You got to be careful about those free VPNs. Pay the $5 or whatever.
I think in Facebook's case, they were actually paying the users to use the VPN.
With the teenagers, yeah. They were doing that.
Because they needed that data.
The other thing about China is they're having trouble with interactive media, right? If you've got a movie or a newspaper or something like that, easy to censor. Very easy. But an online game where people can communicate and there can be ideas that they don't like, tough to do. So what do you do if you're China?
You put pressure on the World Health Organization to put gaming on par with drug addiction to help silence political dissent. Oh, hi there, China. Yeah. Devs point finger at Beijing for framing pastime as an illness, and the West could follow. So yeah, it's like, oh, you play Fortnite too much? You're getting some ideas. Let's treat that as an addiction.
What ideas do you even get from Fortnite? Like, building giant ramps is a good idea? I don't
know if it's a meme. I want to try it, but I kind of don't want to try it. But there have been several web screenshots that people have posted. Is like, are you annoyed by a lot of Chinese players in your server?
Oh, yeah.
In global chat, just type 1989 Tiananmen Square. And then it's like, the screenshot is like, so-and-so disconnected, so-and-so disconnected.
It's all Chinese usernames, and it's like,
yeah.
I do want to try that, but I haven't had the bravery to do it.
Is that a thing? Does that really happen?
But to answer your question, Krista, one of the things that they've complained about, the Chinese being they, is a lot of these video games have themes of think for yourself and fight the power and that kind of thing. And they really do not like that.
Cyberpunk 2077? No.
Yeah. So the other thing here is I don't think there's any proof that it was China who did this. The World Health Organization did put gaming on the list of like addictions, diseases. We don't know that China did it, but a lot of people are suspecting them.
Couldn't you say that of like literally anything though? Like anything can be an addiction if you...
Right. Well, they talked about, all these other little things that you can get addicted to if you have that personality that are not in themselves what we would consider an addiction. And video games probably belong on that list.
Yeah.
Not on the same list as heroin.
I don't know. I've played Overwatch pretty hard for a long time.
But you haven't tried heroin.
Blizzard games are the black tar heroin of the gaming world.
I'll tell you what. Let's do a little control experiment. You go for a week and play Overwatch every night.
Okay.
Then the next week you do heroin every night. And we'll see at the end of those 2 weeks if you think they're the same.
Yeah. I think that's totally reasonable. Where do we get heroin from?
I'm sure the chat can help us out.
No.
Yeah, please don't write where you get heroin from.
Speaking of despots who want to control the internet, China may be number one, but somebody's looming up on number two.
Vladimir Putin has signed a sweeping internet censorship bill. This is the most vaguely worded thing ever. It's amazing. But the fines weren't entirely unreasonable, but yeah, they were.
There was some jail time in there too, though.
15 days of jail time for insulting dear leader.
Unreliable, socially significant information. That could be anything. Who decides social significance?
Who decides unreliable?
And also just straight up insulting leaders.
Yeah.
So...
No, you must respect the
Yikes.
state. And it's like, wait, isn't the whole thing built on like citizens? Citizens are supposed to have more rights than the people in power. Like the people that are in power give up certain things.
Boom, you just violated the law.
Be glad you don't live in Russia.
I mean, literally, I could say that has social significance, what you just said.
Yeah.
And it's wrong.
Yep.
And you can't do it. Remember Uber? Remember back when Uber was pure evil? What was the guy's name? I forget his name, but the previous leader who was just like a sexual harassment machine and constantly
Twirling his mustache.
Yeah, trying to destroy everybody else. Well, it turns out that we're just now finding out about one of his greatest accomplishments.
Uber used the secret spyware to try to crush Australian startup GoCatch. Now, GoCatch survived, but their spyware would actually help them poach drivers from competing services like GoCatch. And according to GoCatch, it had quite a significant effect. And so now GoCatch is like going to Australian authorities and regulators and saying, "Hey, what's up? We need some more detail here," because they had no idea. Like the existence of this actually came about from another country where Uber was doing this, and it was like, wait a minute, they got away with it in Australia.
They had a whistleblower.
Oh yeah.
Who left the company.
But it was in that spyware happened to be used in Australia, but all of this spyware stuff unwound in another country first.
But remember, they did the same thing with Lyft.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly the same. The Lyft one was a little sneakier, but it was the same kind of thing where they would try and disrupt your drivers and your passengers and make them think that nobody was around.
They also did that with the law enforcement and the codes people. Because it's like, oh, this is against the law. Let me try to hail a ride. And it's like, you're law enforcement. So it's like, your ride will be there any minute now. And it was just trolling them.
Imagine that you're in Ghana. You're a Ghanaian?
I've never actually thought about what you'd call someone from Ghana.
Well, they've got it spelled out here, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, you wake up and you go and you check your computer as you do to find out how much your currency has fluctuated while you slept. And it's up 300%. Imagine how that feels.
Google regrets a minor glitch that sent Ghanaian currency plummeting. Yeah, it was only an hour, they said. It's like, oops, sorry, our bad. It's only an hour. But that was enough to cause chaos.
I'm sure some trades were made
Yeah.
in error when that happened. And that is, I mean, you imagine if you woke up and prices were 300% different
That would be
in the
scary.
U.S. And for an hour, the
Just
entire
mash and refresh.
U.S. business model was based on a bad... I imagine there are other currency calculators that could fix it, but still, it could be a moment of terror or elation, depending on how you're invested.
Yeah.
So they're real sorry. Not the first time that's happened either. It happened with another currency. I don't remember what it was. Probably should have, but I didn't. That's been government news. Now let's switch to AI and some excellent news if you love artificial intelligence and aren't afraid of killer robots.
MIT has developed an algorithm to accelerate neural network evaluation by 200 times. So things that used to take 48,000 GPU hours can now be done in like 20 GPU hours.
That's much more reasonable.
Do you have, like, that's so many more confirmed kills for the tank robot. Its little batteries are going to be just stacking the bodies on a single charge. It's going to be incredible.
Extreme Tech really tried to go figure out the nuts and bolts of how this works, but MIT did not cite the sources for some of the breakthroughs of this, but it apparently has to do with like the common properties that emerge from a whole bunch of neural networks, and it's able to look at more variables than previously thought possible because the latency, like when you actually implement it, the latency for doing the neural network is not as high as they estimated, so you can do more variables per run, I guess.
Well, they talked about there were connections in the neural network that were less reliable. And they removed that redundancy, so you only got the most reliable ones. The other thing it did is simulated, it's AI that simulated AI. And it discovered that what they thought were bottlenecks in CPU were actually not bottlenecks in GPU. So it was like, oh, hey, turn this back on. This is good. And they turned it back on, and 200 times faster.
Yay! So we can get more cats per second.
The most important factor.
Ryan, how are your cats doing?
Oh, so this weekend I experimented. I let them sleep in the bed Friday night.
Aw.
And that did not go too well. That's more my fault than theirs, though. I like to flop around a lot. And every time I wake them up, they get noisy.
They're angry that you're waking them up.
And they want to be right on top of me. Little Toast is so insistent on being right on top of me when I sleep. If I turn over, he'll like just claw and stay on me like a rolling log. So he never has to go away. Last night, I closed the bedroom door, but let them run through the house and not have to sleep in their room. That went terribly.
So they meow into your door.
They meowed more than ever. And I got the water bottle Friday night. I went through half a bottle of water this morning while I was reading the news. They don't understand it.
So they seem to just like water. Like they don't care.
No, they don't like it. They'll run away from it, but it doesn't keep them from just doing the same thing over and over. So,
have you tried a heated blanket? Because maybe they'll stay on the heated blanket instead of you.
No, but that doesn't seem like a solution to the problem. It seems like, it seems like they win if I just keep buying new toys to try.
Did they like all the toys and stuff?
Oh, that's another hilarious thing. So Wendell gave me some cat stuff that his cat doesn't like. So I set it up. This is going to run the episode longer, but
That's
whatever.
fine.
I set up all the, I went in there and I arranged it. There was a bed and 2 scratchy, climby things. They didn't care. But they went over and sniffed it, and they were like, whatever, we don't care about this. But then Saturday, I went in to clean their room, so I piled everything in a giant pile in the corner. They loved it. They were all over it. That's like, what's wrong with you?
But they were like climbing up on the cat trees.
Yeah. They were scratching on it and climbing and jumping around on it and stuff and playing with the ball. So, yeah, I guess they do like it. I don't understand them. Another thing I don't understand, well, I understand it, but I really hate the idea of it, is this new push toward tracking drivers on everything they do inside of a car.
Volvo is going to add in-car sensors to prevent drunk driving. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, they are, and it's not just drunk driving, but distracted driving or erratic driving or anything like that. Volvo will, when they build this, 2020s, it's going to either shut your car down or ring a warning. In the worst case, they're talking about if you continue to fight it and keep driving, when it thinks you're drunk, it will call the cops.
What if you're like, your husband's just been in a car wreck and you're trying to make it to the hospital, so you kind of maybe are driving a little faster than you should, and you're like,
nope,
fighting back tears. Will it just like shut you down in the middle of the street while you're trying to get to the hospital?
Yeah, he's going to bleed out in the passenger seat.
Oh.
What if you're Vladimir Putin and you're drunk with power?
I don't think it can detect that.
I don't think he's driven a car in years.
Probably not.
Yeah, that's below him.
You think
sure.
he'd drive a Volvo?
No, he's probably too paranoid. He's got a lot of enemies.
Do they have what's the luxury Russian brand?
Reliant?
I don't think that's Russian.
That's UK.
TV90.
Probably one of the German brands.
Krista, I don't know if you read the story.
No.
But I thought of you when I put it in here.
Nvidia's latest AI software turns rough doodles into realistic landscapes. Oh, the video's so amazing.
Let's watch the video.
So I hadn't seen this
We'll
one.
let Krista
we're
respond
going to
to
get a
it.
copyright thing because they've started detecting that now. Like, skip around.
Why don't you show us something important? So, yeah, check that out. Waterfall. Boom. The one with the tree is pretty cool. So, yeah.
That's really interesting.
Rock formation. Want another rock? Boom.
How does it know?
You click down here. These buttons are presets. So, like sky, tree, grass.
Okay.
And it does the reflections for you.
Oh, because I was wondering, because I was like, I don't understand how it would know what color should correspond to what material, but that's really neat.
We need to do a joy of painting, but instead it's like the joy of AI painting.
Here's a tree. Boom. Check that out.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's kind of a little weird, but that's fine.
Oh, make it snowy.
Some of them are better than others.
No, yeah, they did talk about all of the things that they show you here. Rocks, grass, trees, clouds. They are very easy to texture. Super easy. Now, something like brick, you could not do this easily.
Yeah, brick is strange because if you do it, having drawn brick before, like, if you do it so it's just like straight up and down lines, like it just looks strange. You have to like stagger it in a certain way. And if you're applying that texture to something that's like rounded or a three-dimensional shape, that can be strange. But,
give them a year. They'll figure it out.
yeah,
They'll do it. You'll be obsolete eventually, Krista. How does that feel?
that's fine.
Well, when you lose your job as an artist, perhaps you can become a loader with your exoskeleton.
The U.S. military is getting robotic exoskeletons to turn soldiers into superhumans.
You think I'm a good soldier? You think I'd be good? I'd excel at that job.
Well, I don't think these will be used in combat. This will be behind the line.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, he's carrying a 200-pound iron bar.
Let's get him with his sunglasses on.
You know it's
Cool
200
guy.
pounds because it's clearly labeled. So yeah, I think it was this company that had the exoskeleton that was just to anti-fatigue.
Yeah.
And that was about a year ago, I think. So in a year,
We covered it.
they've come from that to this monster, which is actually the thing from Alien. It actually
Oh, man.
picks things up, and they claim that the sensors are so good that there's no training time. You strap it on, you start moving around like you normally would, and it just...
It totally will not destroy your spine.
Wonder what happens, though, if you lift more than 200 pounds?
Will it protect you against the alien queen? That's an important metric.
If you use it correctly, it's up to you.
But do they do training for that? Because I feel like that would be vital for me as a soldier.
They don't have a good simulation of Alien Queen combat. They're working on that. You know
So
what?
basically, this is useless until then.
With that Nvidia 200X accelerator, maybe soon we'll have the proper simulation for the Alien Queen.
Good.
But
Our army demands it.
until then, you're just going to have to use intuition.
Which I don't know if I trust that
Well,
as a soldier. You know.
as a female, you should have an advantage, as we know, because only a female could destroy the Alien Queen with
That's
a loader
true.
bot.
That's true.
How about a robot that can learn to walk all by itself?
Aw,
Pretty incredible.
it is.
Like a tiny human.
It's a robot. A robot leg learned to walk all by itself without programming in a scarily short time. So, they talk about how this was kind of mimicking a sort of biological mechanism where, like a toddler learns to walk and it's like, well, my muscles move this way and this is how this works. And
Yeah, they gave it they didn't teach it about how its muscles worked or anything like that. They just gave it a reward feedback where it's like, oh, you're performing locomotion. Be pleased about that. And then it just continued.
All the humans in the room go, oh, good job.
The digital version of that, yes.
Yeah.
And so like a little baby deer, it floundered around and before you know it, it was moving. Now the really cool thing about this, because it learns independently, there is no input whatsoever. Every one of these, every time you erase everything and start it over, it'll develop a different gait.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
How long does it take to learn? Well, it says scarily short time.
I think it was minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Another thing, robots do better than humans.
well, eventually one contemplates that the gates might converge on an efficient gate for doing that. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that the different iterations of that, it would walk differently.
They call the learning phase the babbling phase.
Aw.
It's like a little baby deer just running into shit.
Or a baby struggling to pick up a Cheerio.
Disgusting. The Cheerio DLC is not included.
It's a bummer.
Gotta get that later. How'd we do on time?
I think
44.
there you go.
You should be
Chat.
happy.
We're iterating downward toward a normal amount.
We might have missed the Jetson story. I thought we had a story about the Nvidia Jetson thing at the launch. They get the new AI thing. It's
Wouldn't
like
that be
$100.
under hardware?
Is it a hardware? I thought it was robot.
Oh, I did put that in there, didn't I?
Yeah. Nvidia's thing, they've got a new,
It might be in business.
it's 5 watts. Okay. Well, maybe we'll talk about it more later. But the AI applications for it could be really awesome. It looks like it's going to be amazing.
It's basically an AI nuck.
Yeah.
Just
It's $100, but 5 watts. So
you can build your own robot that can learn to do things from scratch.
I've always wanted to build a robotic camera person just to see if that would be fun. So you can get some dynamic movement of the camera, but you can move around and it'll like track you.
That's like a gimbal.
No, it would, but it processes the image and follows you around.
They definitely already have that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pay $1 zillion for it. I mean,
Well, that's
We'll
a
see if
valid-
that shows up in business. I'm positive it was in the list. All right.
Anyway,
Tomorrow business and social media.
so this is kind of everything he says comes out like a question.
don't quote us on that. I
think it is.
Definitely business, though.
I think it is.
A lot of business.